Last week, King Charles's portrait was unveiled, eliciting a chorus of shock and horror. Here is Charles, emerging or blending in, however you want to look at it, from a swirling blood red background. The image sparked a sinister imagery, a king in the midst of a bloody reign. I wondered if by commissioning such a portrait, Charles was maybe sending a warning to those who fail to obey and to pledge allegiance to the cult of the heir. Cross us and you will pay the price. So not enough has been said about Camilla. And who is Queen Camilla? Camilla Rosemary Shand was born on July 17, 1947. She had a privileged upbringing in a well-connected British family. Raised in East Sussex, she was the daughter of Major Bruce Shand, a British Army officer turned wine merchant, and Rosalind Shand, an aristocrat. She attended many prestigious schools. Her mother trained her on how to behave in aristocratic circles and the ways of a successful courtier. And as such, she has always considered herself to be an aristocrat. She famously told Charles when they were first introduced, "My great-grandmother was the mistress of your great-grandfather, so what do you say?" Or something to that effect. And there began an affair spanning decades, culminating into her ascendance today alongside King Charles III. Not as queen consort, but the queen. And boy, did she play the long game. And if you think Camilla is satisfied, if you think Camilla, having wrested the title from Queen Elizabeth's proverbial cold dead hands, that now she is content, then you don't know Camilla. Perhaps now, more than ever, Camilla is behind the scenes, orchestrating all the movements of the members of the royal family, like players on her chessboard, where she is literally the queen. This week, she was seen at the badminton horse trials with none other than Rose Hanbury. And as I suspected, the fallout of Harry meeting with his father while he was in London last week had to do with his refusal to speak to his father in the company of Camilla, who he has long suspected correctly of being the main source of information to the press. And when it comes to the press, Camilla is in full control. And she has been for quite some time now, maybe even before Diana's death. She agreed to be their little birdie, releasing tapes and intercepting notes and exposing through whispers at her parties the most intimate and private lives of members of the family. In the royal family, we see a family so terrified of losing popularity because their popularity is tied to funding. Public funding, to be precise. So they fight like alley cats to maintain any good standing in the face of an increasingly unsympathetic public. And what better way to do that than to use the press to put out hit pieces against whomever has fallen from their favor? So where does Kate fall into all this? Well, the press may not talk much about it now, but Kate never quite got along with Camilla. There are numerous reports of the rift between the two women, dating back before Kate even married William. Camilla apparently did not see Kate as a suitable match for marriage into the royal family. It was even reported that it was Camilla who was behind the brief breakup between William and Kate back in, I believe it was 2009. She often cruelly referred to her as dim, and echoes of those taunts would have no doubt touched a nerve in Kate from back in her days at Downhouse School, where she was mercilessly bullied, which would have no doubt taken a toll on her self-esteem. As I pointed out in my last video, Lady Gabriella was a witness to much of the bullying Kate received while a student there before Kate's eventual transfer to Marlborough College. By the way, Lady Gabriella has reportedly moved back into Kensington Palace. But that's going to have to be a topic for another day, folks, because a lot more has come out about Thomas Kingston's mysterious death. So anyway, back to Camilla. She made clear her displeasure of Kate at one point after the coronation, insisting that her parents enter the palace through the back like the common merchants, and insisting to be curtsied to whenever anyone entered her presence. And right after William and Kate married, Camilla started a vicious whisper campaign against her new daughter-in-law, claiming that Kate was unable to conceive a child. And there's another revelation that puts into focus Camilla's cruel and Machiavellian nature. This year, Kate's birthday was barely noticed, covered briefly by the press. And in one of my earlier videos, I noticed that based on the timeline dating back from Christmas and the ambulance convoy, which may or may not have had something to do with Kate, we don't know, there was a roughly 3-week gap between the time that Kate was last seen in public and the announcement that she was in the hospital for sudden or planned abdominal surgery. And between this gap was Kate's 42nd birthday, which I don't believe that Kate had a chance to celebrate. And folks, I think that in any sane and rational world, this period between the time she was last seen and the surgery announcement would be a crucial period in any missing person investigation, to be thoroughly examined by any mildly competent journalist or detective. But apparently not in the UK. So after taking a look at the newspaper articles about Kate's birthday this year, there's a little detail hiding in plain sight that I hadn't noticed before, but now has become a major clue indicating Camilla's possible involvement in all this. For Kate's birthday, it states that Camilla marked her birthday by releasing to the press this photograph of Kate at the coronation. Well, what's the big deal, you might ask? Well, the press may try to black this out now, but at Charles's coronation last year, there was a huge debacle that turned contentious with regard to Camilla's insistence on being curtsied to as she was crowned, and that Kate refused. There was also some disagreements with regard to the invitees, where Kate was only allowed to invite a few family members, while Camilla, seeing this as her big moment, invited at least 20 family members. She no doubt saw this as the culmination of her decades-long waiting, her triumph over a public that never quite saw her as legitimate. The heartless homewrecker who tormented the young Princess Diana. So this was her moment, her triumph, her revenge, and she relished it. And she was going to make everyone bow down to the Queen. But Kate refused. And when you get to understand that little background, well, it puts it into a little sharper focus that by her releasing this photo to the press of Kate at the coronation on her 42nd birthday, when we know that in all likelihood, Kate was already at this point, at the very least, incapacitated and unable to defend herself, or worse, Camilla was again mocking Kate. And so here we have the meddling adulteress, the depraved tormentor of young wives who tormented her now husband's ex-wife, leaving notes on her bed, who tormented Kate for her class, mocking and jeering her timidity. And did you ever wonder why, considering all she has done, she still managed to skate by in the press? Because who controls the press controls the royal family. And so with the entry of the beguiling and enigmatic Rose Hanbury, it is clear that Camilla is signaling to William a clearing of the path. Because in her mind, she feels that Rose legitimizes her. Because alongside the cult of the heir, you have, naturally, the cult of the mistress. Here was Rose the other day wearing a hat that looks suspiciously familiar. Here was her son holding the train of the gowns on their way inside St. Paul's. So why is Camilla promoting Rose Hanbury? Well, we know now that she hated Kate, that she thought Kate was nothing, that she mocked Kate, calling her stupid behind her back, taunting her in the most personal of ways, that she thought her parents were nothing, insisting that they enter through the back like the common merchants. Camilla sees herself and Rose as real aristocrats. And the cult of the heir is a cult of aristocrats. So her inviting Rose into the fold, long since rumored to be William's mistress, even wearing what might damn well be Kate's old clothes, is probably the most outright indication to date that Kate is not coming back. And folks, how disgusting are these people? Didn't they just give Kate some award, pretending like they care, handing out honors and titles as if they care about her when they don't, when they're well aware that she's gone and may even in fact be complicit? So just as Camilla tortured Diana throughout her short life, so did she torture Kate. And it was sad that Diana could only enjoy a few months of freedom before her death. And folks, I'm going to be honest. For all these years, when people would tell me that Diana's death was suspicious, I never believed it until now. There is the famous note written by Diana only 10 months before her death, predicting ominously that she feared her husband was planning an accident in her car. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned the dubious reports of a mysterious car accident where Carol was supposedly seriously injured. Since then, we have seen neither Carol nor Michael Middleton. Only nebulous reports of what I believe to be planted stories in the press about William meeting Carol in a pub with no photographs to back it up, or that she has moved in. And remember the flurry of negative headlines about the Middletons that seemed to pop up from out of nowhere a few weeks ago, reporting on a now year-old story of the collapse of party pieces? It suddenly dawned on me who might be behind these stories in the press. And folks, Rose's elevation and the planted stories about the Middletons going broke are all part of Camilla's modus operandi. This is Camilla through and through. She has always seen herself as a loyal standard bearer for the British aristocracy. And now that she sits on the very pinnacle of power, she sees herself as the gatekeeper of who she deems worthy of entry. When people think of the royal family, they think of the pomp and pageantry, the prestige, the hobnobbing with dignitaries, and moving in the most exclusive of circles. But I don't think too much attention is paid to the business of the royal family. In particular, who holds the purse strings? The royal families has income from a variety of sources, both public and private. You have the sovereign grant paid out to the king by the British government, that is the taxpayers, to the tune of around £86 million per year. And this grant is based on profits of the Crown Estate, a business run independently that manages the vast properties and land owned by the monarch. Then you have the Privy Purse, which is the income derived from the Duchy of Lancaster. Next, we have the Duchy of Cornwall. This estate provides income specifically for the heir to the throne. That is the Prince of Wales. And the Duchy of Cornwall includes agricultural, commercial, and residential properties, generating revenue that supports the charitable and private activities of the Prince of Wales and his family. And beyond these institutional funds, there are the private estates like Sandringham House and Balmoral Castle that brings in a lot of tourism dollars. So all in all, we're talking about a lot of money here, folks. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $28 billion. And folks, I'm sure by now everyone is aware of Prince Andrew and the settlement he was ordered to pay in the Virginia Giuffre case. And this case really illuminated who has what in the royal family. While he was a working royal, Prince Andrew received an annual salary of around £250,000 per year. But after it was revealed that he was involved in the sordid Jeffrey Epstein affair, he was stripped of his duties as a working royal, leaving him with a paltry army pension of around £20,000 a year. Since the fallout from the scandal and his reportedly lavish lifestyle, he has since had to sell his 12-bedroom mansion gifted to him by his mother, the late Queen. And Andrew's financial woes have been no secret. He always seems to be involved with shady characters who give him money under dubious circumstances. Just last year, he was ordered in yet another settlement to repay money stolen from a victim of a scam. And here's the lead in this story. Right after the Queen's death, Andrew, to his dismay, discovered that he was left out of any of the vast inheritance left by the Queen due to a legislation passed in Parliament back in 1993, where instead of her inheritance being passed down and divided among all her children, it would instead be passed only to the direct heir. In other words, from monarch to monarch. And this was done to protect her assets from being taxed. And what this means is that not only Andrew, but Edward and Anne and all their spouses and their children, whenever they need money, they would have to grovel before the monarch, hat in hand. So the cult of the heir is also a cult of money, where only the heir matters and all the others can go pound sand. And folks, it was no coincidence that George, the heir, was the only child of Kate's seen in public since Christmas. And finally, I just want to address some comments. I see people saying things like Kate is a racist or she was no Diana. And folks, I just want to say this. This is not about whether or not you like Kate. It doesn't matter if you don't like Kate. Don't you understand? This is about people in power given free rein to disappear people without any consequence. And that should scare the living bejesus out of all of us. But instead, we're here fixated on this stupid Kate versus Meghan drama that's just a media distraction. And are you saying you can only care about a woman gone missing if you like her? What kind of shit is that? To be concerned about Kate is to be concerned about all women, whether you like them or not. Because the subtext is that she deserved it. And I just can't get on board with that. And for all you people talking about Kate should have done this and Kate should have done that, and Kate knew what she was doing or she signed up for this, let me ask you a question. Seriously, how much power do you think Kate really had? How much control do you think she really had? Do you think she could have just said, that's it, I'm out of here? You see what happened to Diana when her security was removed. You see what happened to Harry and Meghan when they decided to escape, because that's just what they did, escape. Charles ordered their security to be taken away. So what the hell do you think would happen to Kate? Because one of the saddest realizations in all this was that Kate had no friends. She was shy because of the bullying she experienced, and she was isolated when she entered the royal family. And it seems the only person she was really close to, who she could confide in, was her mother. And now we don't even know where she is. I could easily see William ordering her to behave a certain way to people in order to carry out his wishes as the vaunted heir, just as he tried to order his brother to shave his beard. But instead, everyone continues to be fixated on this media-manufactured feud that's coming right out of Camilla's playbook. Seeing Kate's disappearance as a kind of justice for what they perceive to be her poor treatment of Meghan. And I just think that is not only wrong-headed, but plays right into their hands. And I can't hate Kate. I see her as a victim. Oh, you don't think she's a victim? Then where is she? So go on distracting yourselves with this back and forth, exchanging barbs on social media while they just keep picking people off who they find inconvenient or who get in their way. Because that's what this is about for me. This is not a fan account. This is not a Kate fan account, and this is not a Sussex fan account. This is about accountability. If someone or someones are responsible for Kate being unalived, then someone needs to face the bar of justice. And when you take into account all that's at stake, then you get to understand why they are so hell-bent on keeping this thing under wraps. Because if William has to abdicate for whatever reason, if William has to forfeit his place as the heir, then he stands to lose quite a lot. So sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think. I will continue to read your comments and address them accordingly. And thank you for listening and giving me your very valuable feedback. And I have a whole lot of other stuff lined up, so stay tuned, and I'll catch you later.